This is such a perfect way to do that. And I'm not surprised that you're seeing great results with this, because it helps people also like orient themselves to what Copper actually does.
Welcome to another episode of Behind the Experience, where you get an inside look behind the top product-led experiences. Each week, you'll receive inspiring UX examples, proven strategies, and hard-earned lessons from experts. This is one of your co-hosts, Ramley John, and with Lila Rizal, my co-host, we're going to be chatting with Jessica Andrews. She is the product marketing lead at Copper. Now, we're going to be digging into how they apply the jobs to done framework into the onboarding flow that increased their engagement rate by 15%, as well as we'll see a magical success screen that really got more of the new users to install their Chrome plugin. Now, before we start, make sure to subscribe to the show to wherever you get your podcasts, on Apple, Spotify, or Google Play, anywhere else, as well as we're on YouTube. Make sure to check us out there and subscribe. That's all for now. Let's jump in my chat with Jessica. And we are going to geek out about frameworks, tools, and examples that drive product adoption. I'm super excited to just be digging here. This is Ramley John, your host, and we also have my lovely co-host here, Lila.
Hello, everyone. And today we're joined by Jessica Andrews, Senior Product Marketing Manager. Did I get that right? At Copper,
yes.
the CRM for Google Workspace. She's a neighbor of Ramley, based out of Toronto, Canada. And we're so happy to have Jessica here. Big Copper fan, big Copper energy in the house. Big
Amazing.
big fan of Jessica and what she's doing over there. So we're so happy to have you, Jessica.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Woohoo.
Yeah, let's jump in.
Yeah, we're going to jump right into it. Not going to spend a lot of time going back and forth, but I want to just ask right away, how do you define onboarding at Copper?
That is the big question, eh? So it's not just that onboarding is a simple thing that you can define. It really depends on the organization. So, I mean, this answer from a year ago at Copper would have been different than what it is today. But in terms of my specific role, I define onboarding as the minute that someone clicks sign up on our website and goes through the entire onboarding flow that we've set up. They've been using the product for 14 days. And then at the end of those 14 days, they choose to purchase. And that's kind of when onboarding finishes. But ask again in a month or two, and it might actually be an extended period of time after someone purchases, because we have monthly plans, and the trial isn't necessarily over, and the onboarding process isn't over right after purchase. It might continue a couple months. So long story short, it's a work in progress on what that definition is for us.
Yeah, I love that. And so it's interesting that for you all specifically, it's like really focused around the trial that you're talking about onboarding. So how do you refer to the stage in someone's life as a customer after they put that credit card in, or they sign up for that annual contract or whatever? It's not onboarding. So what is it?
Yeah. So again, this is where it kind of all is a weird scenario, because when we kind of sell to larger organizations, we do have an onboarding team that will help them in the first 30 days after purchase to get everyone kind of onboarded. So I guess it depends on the different team. If you want to ask some of our CS org team, then onboarding is a much wider term. But in my very specific case, we've been focused on trial onboarding. So I would say that it's a nuanced answer, but I would say that probably towards the end of the year, it's going to encompass everything. It's just when we throw out the word onboarding in product and product marketing, it currently means something different than what the CS org will call it.
Very common, very understandable. Trying to align on all of those definitions ourselves over here at AppFuse.
Yeah, same. Super fascinating. You said it's shifted. What's been that driver that shifts the definition of onboarding for Copper? Is it the business, or is it how you're better understanding your users, or is it totally something else that's redefining what onboarding is?
It's definitely the fact that Copper has made the decision to pursue product-led growth. That's 100% what it comes down to, is that in the past, we weren't necessarily a product-led growth organization. Maybe we were, but not really focused on it. And towards the end of 2022, that's going to become a bigger and bigger priority for us. So that's mainly why the definition changes, because in product-led growth organizations, the onboarding stage is very important, and it's the piece that drives the entire engine. So in our past life, more focused on kind of larger organizations and not necessarily selling free trials as much as we do now. Onboarding meant something else. So I think towards the end, we're going to have kind of a hybrid model where there's going to be a need for both scenarios. But yeah, it's a work in progress.
Yeah, it's fascinating where we are in the same situation here, Lila, like where we have this hybrid approach. Like, yeah, Lila probably has a better understanding. She owns onboarding at AppQs. Um,
I
yeah.
do. And we have a lot of these types of conversations. Like, I think before I joined, especially, we were thinking about it in the same way. Like, when a product person was talking to a marketing person about onboarding, it was probably referring to the trial or a new person signing up for the product. Whereas a customer success or a support person was talking about a new person that just purchased specifically and is like talking to teams and setting up things and having calls. And they are two completely different beasts. And we are figuring out where all those separations are right now. You know, we're kind of at the baby steps stage ourselves, or it's like, okay, it's trial and it's post-purchase. And then like within each of those sections, there are also multiple breakdowns that we need to investigate. But we're like just in the trial and post-purchase, managed and non-managed journey right now. Very common for people who are in who are starting out product-led. If you're like, I feel like we're on stage 2, and lots of other people are like still on that stage 1 where you're trying to get the self-serve motion going.
Yeah, I would even say that a lot of companies want to be product-led, but it's you're turning everything on its head the way that you've been doing business forever. So even these stages are exciting, but knowing that the true pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is still further down. It's exciting. It's fun to kind of see things change and see the increases that copper has seen over the last couple months.
Totally makes sense. Yeah, you mentioned the pot of gold there. I love that analogy. You kind of already alluded to it, and I just want to make it clear so people tuning in, because this question of like what is success for onboarding kind of changes from team to team, from company to company. Can you rephrase? Can you say it again, like exactly what success is for onboarding at this moment? Because like I said, you mentioned already, it changed from probably a month ago to what it would be next month. So what is it currently? What is success in terms of onboarding for at Copper?
Yeah, for sure. So the overall metric that we're starting to think about now is comparing how many people have actually purchased after a trial versus the number of people that have signed up for a trial. And so making sure that those numbers are aligned across the organization. Product knows what that number is and knows where to find it. I know where to find it. Everyone needs to know what that number is and what the percentage is so you can see it track upwards. And then between that, there's a bunch of other stages that we're actually looking at. So we want to know how many people maybe are getting stuck on the email portion. So when they're actually signing up through Google authentication, or if they're registering on our website through a regular form fill, are they actually getting the email? Are they clicking on the email and coming into the product? We want to improve that because that ends up contributing to the overall goal. Same with our kind of 6-page onboarding that we do at the very, very beginning of a new trial. We want to make sure that if there's optimizations within that flow, that we account for it. So overall, conversion to trial is the biggest metric that we look for, but there's also smaller metrics from within as well.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. I love that you're all like you have different teams aligned to like a specific metric. You know, some people call it a North Star metric in the OGSM world, but there's all types of ways of that. So how do you then align these different teams and like work with them to improve the experience? Was like the metric, did you start there and then work backwards? Like, how did you end up getting everybody kind of on board for this big metric?
Well, I would say that the big metric is probably like a week old at this point. So we've always kind of known what we want it to be, but measuring it has been crazy. I don't know why, but we have marketing using their marketing automation tools to get these events that don't match Mixpanel, which is our product measurement, that don't match our billing system. And so I think we've made the most progress in the last 2 or 3 weeks, where I think we've always known what the metrics should be. We just didn't have the proper way of measuring it, or we had too many different places measuring it. So we're getting really close now, where we have different ways of measuring the same thing, and they're all kind of close, but we don't know which one's the most accurate. So that's why I think we're getting there. And it's really about cross collaboration with multiple departments and just getting on the same page. If there's something that automation can do to bring the right numbers in all the places we like to be, then that's kind of the overall goal.
Yeah, I love that. And I don't think you're alone in that either. I think that is something that people transitioning to product led often underestimate, is the amount of data and systems work that needs to work properly in order to power that. And if you don't mind me digging in a little bit on some of the actual tactics you use to kind of unite your team, like in the nitty gritty sense, like, did you have a cross-functional, like, trial team that spanned marketing and product, or like check-ins or a Slack channel? Like, could you walk me through, or walk everyone through, like, just some of those maybe nitty-gritty tactics that you took to unite people? Because I just, like, the reason I'm digging in, I just think this is a big struggle for people, so they would love to learn from you how you approach this.
Yeah, for sure. I think persistence, that's kind of the overarching theme, is that I started off using our product metrics and then realizing that there were gaps. And then I started using the marketing teams, and I asked questions about, why are the marketing metrics and the product metrics different? Why do we measure them in different places? And a lot of times it was like, I don't know, I don't have a lot of time. And so I just kind of kept reiterating and saying, isn't it good if we know what all these metrics are, and have a North Star metric, as you say, to align ourselves to? And I think now that we have proven through the different places, every different way of measuring has gone up. Now everyone is starting to say, hold on a minute, this new trial experience is working. Let's all align on what the same place is. I think that's it. So I think it was time. I wasn't able to get it done overnight. I wasn't able to really push towards a unified metric in one day. It took a quarter, I would say, to get to that, but I think we're almost there. So persistence, and just keep kind of promoting the fact that we should all have a source of truth.
That makes a ton of sense. It's just interesting it took you a quarter. I think that's that's something that people have to be mindful of. Like getting people aligned on certain things sometimes can take really take some time there. Can you dig a little bit more into, you got persistence? Like, were you trying to talk to the product team? It was like, hey, this is not matching up. Like, what are, like, can you help me out? Like, what were some like diplomatic exercises or approaches that you did to kind of get everybody aligned on the same page?
Yeah, I think it's one way is a lot of kind of meetings where we had product and marketing and the revenue operations in the same meeting, where we would kind of try to share as much knowledge with how each of us were tracking. So the product team was tracking a very small portion of onboarding, which was their new onboarding flow. How many people are getting from step to step? How much information are we collecting from there? And notifying when certain events are firing. And then that kind of informed the marketing team and the revenue operations team to say, hey, wait a minute, we should change our metrics to match what you're tracking, because the old experience had different trackers in it. Now they're in the wrong place. So I think it's really like a learning situation, and having everybody come together at one table or one Zoom meeting to kind of share what they're doing and what they're measuring, and say, wait a minute, I've changed this a couple weeks ago. You should change yours too. It's a lot. And it's also, you don't want to push too hard and say, we need to do this right now, because every team has their own thing that's going on at the same time. So yeah, learning together and making sure knowledge is shared is key.
We're in the same situation. I think we shared it in the first episode here with Lala, like some of the things she's doing. Maybe like the app keys for app keys? Like maybe Lila, you want to share some of the stuff you're working on, because like this is a really big problem that people, especially if you want to work on onboarding, you can't just be siloed on one team, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, one of the reasons that you can move success forward faster is by just having those tough conversations and saying like, hey, this isn't actually matching up with what I'm seeing. I'm so sorry, but like, can we figure out where this is at? And also creating just more transparency across what you're working on and like what your goals are. That's what I've done with, or tried to do a lot more of, when I started running our AppKeys account, is to just like level up when a new flow is published, level up what we're messaging, level up where there are flows across the user journey. Even just that conversation, I feel like can add a lot of value and make people kind of start thinking about things in the same way, and maybe get people more aligned. We also are building like a cross-functional team. It doesn't look at like the trial in particular, but we're focusing on self-serve onboarding like as a whole crew, as CX, as marketing, and really trying to like align the marketing messaging with what's actually happening with managed accounts and the way we talk to customers. So anyway, it's alignment from product, it's alignment from CX, it's alignment from everywhere. So like you said too, Jessica, it's like it's about persistence and being the squeaky wheel in a lot of ways, right? Like you have, and sometimes, especially if you're in a remote company, you sometimes need to share the same thing over and over again in multiple channels, in multiple meetings, and say it again and again, because like we're all on a bunch of Zoom meetings, we're all inundated with information from every direction. So that persistence and that belief is really important. You have to believe, I think, in that this matters if we all get on the same page and really care about it. Otherwise, you're just going to get frustrated.
Yeah, for sure.
Totally. Well, thank you. I guess that kind of leads to, you're talking about building flows, and Jessica, you've been building flows, and I want to highlight one of the things that you've built out here, and you already can share some wins, some wins
Yes.
in terms of kind of races here. Let me just show this, and for people who are tuning in through the podcast, there's a screen here. It says, "Welcome, Juliana. Tell us what you hope Copper can help with. Select that things that apply." It says managing sales pipelines. There's like 5 other options: process automation, and then there's on the right side there's a person on a laptop facing towards those 5 options. Can you talk a little bit about like how you and your team has kind of started thinking about building this together, and like you said there's some wins. Curious what those wins are for this.
Yeah. So one thing that we kind of found right after we launched our new trial onboarding experience was that most people would drop off the onboarding flow on the first step. And this is our first step, is asking basically jobs to be done. What are they selecting a CRM for? What are they looking to achieve? And this was important because we are still planning on having our onboarding customized based on what jobs to be done they selected at the very beginning. But we were noticing that a large amount of people were dropping off at this stage. And so what it was before was all of these stages, like managing sales pipelines, said, I want to manage my sales pipeline. I want to organize my key relationships. And it was written out much more significantly, and it was very long. And what we did was we recently published this new page where we cut out half the content, half the copy, and made it very clear that we want you to select more than one option. And the engagement with this page increased by 15%. And it's only been live for a week, and we've already seen a huge spike. And so it's good news, because the more people that get past this page, the more people downstream will get into the product. And if you're not getting into the product, then we can't help you if you're not trying out the product, if you're just kind of giving up on that first page. So that was a really exciting win. I don't think we expected that big of a spike, that 15%, but it's had downstream effects already. We've already seen increases in the number of people that get into the product, and engagement scores go up, and it's all good news after this one page change.
No, that totally makes sense. I think it's something that maybe, Lila, what are your thoughts about this? I'm guessing you're gonna say you love it, because I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I've already taken screenshots from this trial and pasted them into our product channel, begging for a similar thing. Because to be clear, for people who can't see this, this is a full page experience that is like, built in. And then, when you sign up, you see this whole screen taking up the whole page, which is really nice. I feel like it forms a friendly tunnel. I feel like, talk a lot about how tunnels can be restrictive, but if you are going to do it and you do have a lot of like different jobs to be done, or you have a particular type of product that has like multiple use cases or multiple user types, and you actually do need to like have someone make a decision. I've worked on products like that before. Like, this is such a perfect way to do that. And I'm not surprised that you're seeing great results with this, because it helps people also like orient themselves to what Copper actually does. And I bet some of the drop off that you get on the screen is probably good, because it's people self-selecting out by seeing that, Copper doesn't do what they wanted or whatever.
Right. For sure. And I think the other kind of nuance to this is that what we do know is it further down in this flow, we ask if this is their first CRM, and most people select that yes, it is their first CRM. And so for those of us in tech, it's kind of surprising, because I'm sure we've all used a CRM extensively in the past, and we still use one. But for a lot of the small businesses that we go after, they've never used one. They don't know what a sales pipeline is. They don't know what a record is or a contact. So by kind of setting the stage of asking them, what are you hoping to accomplish with Copper? The idea is that towards the end, we can show them how certain features work, and in a way that makes sense, as opposed to assuming that they know what an opportunity is when they maybe don't.
Yeah, brilliant. Sorry to interrupt you, Ramley, but I think it's such a huge and important point that we do so often as marketers and as product people. Like, we assume that our users know so much more than we do, than they do. I mean, that they know the same amount as we do, or they have the same perspective. And we use these words that like a lot of times make absolutely no sense, or like way out of that. So I love that. I totally agree. And it's an important reminder to step out of yourself.
Yeah. And it's funny, because at the very beginning of my career, when I was at a smaller startup, I was kind of tasked with doing a lot of cold outreach at the very beginning. And no one told me what to look for. No one told me what tools I would need. So I just started Googling, and then I found some CRMs and I tried them out, and I learned as I went, but it was a long journey, and I had no idea. And a lot of times people will use spreadsheets for CRM instead, and they then learn that there's something easier they can use. So we always have to go in assuming that, pretend your user doesn't know, pretend that you are a brand new product, even though CRM is a very saturated category. There is still a major use case for it, and there's so many different ways that CRMs can help that we all have our own use case for those users.
Yeah. Absolutely. And like, particularly like what you said about spreadsheets, like I think a lot of us in B2B SaaS are trying to convert, or like even not just in B2B, but in general, are trying to convert people off of spreadsheets into our system. This is a very common thing that we're trying to do. And so keeping that mindset is really helpful, I think, when we're building out product tours or anything else. Like, this person was using a spreadsheet, and probably guaranteed that like they weren't even like an Excel wizard when they were working on this spreadsheet, right? So, and they're annoyed by all the pop-ups they're getting on, consumer sites and other things. So it's just it's a tough challenge. It's a tough challenge. And so that, I think it's a good segue to, what were some things that might have surprised you about this, like building this experience or adding in these like layers of onboarding? Was there something that you thought was going to work that didn't, or like something that worked better than you thought it would?
Yeah, I think that what surprised me is the number of people that close out of onboarding flows. I think that's probably, like, I'm sure that one of the major questions that you guys get is, what's a good benchmark for completing a flow? And I don't think that there's a good answer for that, because there's two types of people. There's people that really want to be taken through the product and want to know all the ins and outs, and that's kind of what the flows are for. And then there's other people who are going to click X every single time you appear, and you're not going to be able to get to them. So there needs to be like more than one way. There's sometimes taking a tour through the product is the right way. Sometimes there's other ways to go about it. But no matter what, your product needs to be simple and intuitive. So basically what surprised me is the number of people that X out, because I'm definitely a handheld tour kind of person, and I didn't realize how big the other group was.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I'm actually the other group. So it's kind of funny
perfect.
that I build them. But I think it's a good perspective for somebody
Right.
who builds them, because like I am thinking, what is the least annoying, least obtrusive, interruptive way I can do
Right.
this? You know, sometimes I kind of pivot too far in that direction. And, you know, my colleagues are like, can we make this more visible? Can we turn this into something a little more? And I'm like, okay. But, you know, and I've even gotten to the point sometimes where I've taken like turn flows off or something, and I've had people ask like, can you put that back on? Or is there a way that I can retake that? You know, I agree. We need to learn more about that data to fire some good benchmarks and come up with some good
Makes sense.
benchmarks, because I think they're there. But it is very complicated. Yeah, very complicated personal preference.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I think that's a challenge with onboarding is you got people like Jessica who and like me, sometimes I want to be handheld through something complex, and then you got people like Lyle. You got people who are just like, leave me alone, man. I just want to shop. You know, like it's like going to like a supermarket or like a clothing store, and somebody like starts following you. Some people want to be followed. Like some people want that like white glove service because you feel like a VIP, and then you got people who are like, what the heck? You think I'm gonna steal something? I just want to shop on my own here.
And
So,
that kind of feeds into like future state of where Copper wants to go is, have you used a CRM? If you have, you know the drill. Let's point out the features you're going to love, because I know you're shopping for if it does XYZ feature, versus you've never used a CRM, you probably need a lot more help. So, I mean, we're not there yet. Our onboarding flow works for both sides of the sphere, but it's really future state is there's going to be the people that want to be left alone and the people that want to help. So that's probably a good division.
totally. Yeah, and I think one of the other things that one of the challenges with CRM is like kind of getting contacts into the CRM. You talked about spreadsheets, but there is this one screen I just want to focus on. Probably the last screen I want to take a look at here is just one of the steps in your flows here is let's add some Gmail contacts and get started. So when Lila was signing up for this, you can see some of the contacts that she's recently been in touch with, and then that they can add that folks in. Has this been my gut says like this is a great idea. Is this what you're seeing in terms of data? Like it's actually helping people out, like especially I'm guessing next to the spreadsheet, the next CRM is probably their email. They just use their email as their CRM. Is that a fair assumption, or you have other data that shows that the screen is working or not working at all?
Yeah, so I think that it's kind of complex. So there's kind of two groups here. There's the people that are shopping for a CRM that need to make a recommendation to their C-suite, and they sign up for their own personal Gmail account. And we see a lot of those folks come in, and we really wanted at the very beginning to show the magic of why you should integrate your Google Workspace account, the actual account that you're going to use it with. Because we find that the people that do sign up with Google Workspace are more likely to convert. They have much more intent. So we're still struggling with that a little bit, is how can we encourage people to use their work address instead of their Gmail, their personal Gmail. But this is really where we show the magic, is that we can see that you've interacted with these people. We know that these are the people that you want in your CRM. So let's just take the heavy lifting and importing off your plate and go ahead and do it. So I would say that there's more work to be done on this page, where we can really encourage people to use their work email address instead of personal. But at the same time, it's showing how easy it is to use our CRM. Literally click once and all your conversations are going to start flowing in, and you don't have to do anything else.
Well, that makes sense.
Sorry, Ramley. There's another screen that you have, the one that I would love to steal shamelessly, which is the that one. That's the one. For the listeners, this is a another full page after you complete, their quiz, more or less. And it says, "Congratulations! Now bring the magic of copper into your inbox with our free extension." And it's got a nice blue CTA that says "Get our extension," and a grayed out one that skips this and just goes right into the product, right, Jessica?
Yep.
Yeah. And then there's also a nifty little checkbox at the bottom that says like, "Click here if you want a demo," which is super cool.
Cool.
Yeah, and if you have used AppQues before, you would know that we also have an extension, and it is required really to use our product. So I would love to have something like this that really helps folks learn about our extension and how to use it. I think from what I gather, I'm not a copper expert, but based on this page, in just my limited experience with copper, the extension isn't a required piece, right? It's a bonus. It's like makes it better.
Yeah, it does make it better. We can still use it because the integration with Google happens behind the scenes, and you can still log into Copper and send emails and keep track of everything. But we know that there's a reason why people use Google Workspace at work. It's because they absolutely love using the Gmail interface. I'm one of them. My past companies have been Outlook, and coming over to Google has been amazing. So why do we try to force people to use our interface if they want to use Gmail? So the idea is that the Chrome extension will essentially superpower your inbox, where you can essentially do things a lot more faster and keep things moving where you kind of want to work. So we're not going to force you to come into Copper and send emails. We're going to let you send emails in Gmail, and we're going to make it a lot faster for you. So we want to show that wow moment right here. I guess the other kind of interesting thing about the click here if you'd like a demo, we specifically target people that are kind of in the higher person bracket that we would send over to a copper specialist. So if you're a very small company, we wouldn't necessarily show this to you. But if you have 6 or more people at your company, we definitely want you to go ahead and click to have a demo with a copper specialist who can actually help walk you through your own new trial that you've started. So very, very hyper targeted for that group.
Awesome. Yeah, that's super cool. Love that.
Love this. Yeah. Are you finding that my assumption here, this helps get more people to install the extension? Is that what the numbers are showing, that when you added this, like people during the sign up, it's like, oh wow, I just did something awesome. Now bring the magic. I love the word magic of copper into your inbox. Is that did you see an increase in extension installations after the screen was implemented?
Yeah, we see about 25% that will click on the Get Extension button. But I would say that at least 50% of our customers are using the Chrome extension at some point or another. So we just want them to use it sooner rather than later. So promoting this as quickly as we can helps. The other kind of interesting thing that we're going to start playing around with is, instead of showing this screen, we're going to show our mobile app for real estate and construction customers, because they are not at their computer. So we're going to test out to see if having them download our mobile app actually helps them, because that's the primary way that they're going to be using the product. So that's an experiment we'll have. So it'll be interesting to see if we see a higher uptick in mobile app usage with those specific customers after the fact.
Yeah, I love that. Genius.
Yeah, same. I recall an app, Wave apps, where they're like a financial tool for entrepreneurs, and it's exactly what they do. Like right after you send your first invoice, they're like, "Congratulations! Now get the app installed on your phone." Then they ask for your phone number to send you a link. So I think that's super cool there. You seems like your team is doing some really cool stuff with onboarding, with product adoption, with different things, with flows. Is there anything particular like you're really excited about trying out next? Is there can we take a peek into your roadmap or what's coming up in terms of like what you want to try out that you're super like jazzed about?
Yeah, it's the segmentation for the different industries because I mean already off the bat we know real estate lives on their phone. They are never at their desk. They are hopefully at open houses selling, so they're always on their phone. So segmenting the entire onboarding process for those customers, and then also using the data that we collect from these steps in the journey to customize it later would be key because right now we have that data, I can see it, and it's really interesting for us, but how are we actually going to provide value to customers with that data? So there needs to be a value exchange there. So excited to start working on that piece. But the other kind of concern is with more segmentation, more complexity. So you just have to make sure that you aren't going too crazy and having the flows not land properly or not work properly. So it's a gradual step towards that.
Yeah, you're speaking my language 1,000%. Yeah, I was just actually talking about this in one of our AppQ's workshops, which is like a personalization experience and like branching onboarding and all of these cool things. You get so much data, but don't forget to do something with it. And if you're not getting anything out of your branching onboarding and you're still asking people to choose what they're going to do, then stop doing that. Like,
yeah.
If you're not going to use it, if someone can come in and they push a button that they're a marketer and you don't change their experience at all, and then you're not seeing any increase from personalization, then just remove that button and try and figure out what most people are here to do or like solve for like the biggest problem that you have. But it sounds like the way you've like designed your experience, that it's engaging enough that people will go through and take it, and you're gathering all this data, but it's not necessarily like it doesn't stop people enough, right? Like this experience is good enough that you can get this data, not necessarily completely customize their entire onboarding yet based on what they've selected.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's funny you say that because we had a situation earlier in Q1 where we were about to launch a set of new AppQ's flows. And we had designed two different experiences for our people section. An experience for when you have added contacts in the onboarding flow and for the people who didn't. The problem is that good luck segmenting all of your users based on what they did at the beginning. Not that there's anything like, it's never going to work properly. And the way our product operates is that if there's already contacts, there's a certain way that it looks versus how it looks when you don't add any contacts. So we were getting all worked up about the complexity. And then our head of product was like, let's just optimize for the like intent, the high intent users. Like, let's go after the people who have uploaded their contacts, see how it performs, and we can work on the other one later. But I don't think we've necessarily lost out anything because eventually you add a contact and then everything fires up as it should. So yeah, it was just, you can really hyper focus in the weeds and be worried, oh, what about this user who didn't do it in this exact way? Start with the group that is most engaged and work your way backwards.
Totally. Love it. What a great note to go out on. Jessica, tell us where we can find more about you, what you're working on. Don't try and steal her from Copper, but like what's your, people find you on LinkedIn? What else are you working on?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm also kind of starting to write some content myself about product-led growth and onboarding and all that. So yeah, definitely follow me on LinkedIn. And excited to start ramping up that stuff to talk about our experiences at Copper as well. So you can find me on LinkedIn.
Love that. We can't wait to have you back on the show when you've got some of the app segmentation going, and we got to have round two. Once you get in me and Ramley's clutches, we're never going to let you go.
Never let me go.
Watch out, world. Watch out, world. Once you get into our, warm North American arms, it's just the way it goes. It's just the way it goes. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jessica. I really appreciate your time. And we will get this up on our site, reallygoodux.io, and for people to check it out once it's out. Jessica, I appreciate your time.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you both so much. This was fun. It went really, really well.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really excited to see. I want to stay in touch for real and see what you're working on. Please don't forget to share me things or flows that you're working. I'm curious
Absolutely.
about.
Yeah, for sure.
Keep
I
me in the
will.
loop.
Yeah, no, and then yeah, for sure, copper. We want to do some more like what's the word? Thought leadership for product led growth.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
our head of
You're doing a
product
lot of cool
is
stuff.
yeah, our head of product is the one that's driving this like 100% behind the scenes. He's really pushing and pushing and pushing. So it's just how do we explain the stuff that we're working on, and also trying to sell it to new customers because that's always the harder thing to do. Is to say, hey, look, our trial experience has changed. Come back and check us out. I mean, how do you
Yeah.
market that, right? You don't. It's not a feature you can market, but yeah. So we're trying to figure that out now. So that's what's next.
Reactivations.
Yeah,
Something we don't
exactly.
talk about enough. It's something we don't talk about enough in SaaS, but yeah.
Yeah,
true.
for sure.
Clearly, we could go on all day.
Yeah, that's true. We gotta end this show. Thank you so much. I am gonna end the broadcast and we can chat some more after.